Praxis special education webinar. Let me know that you can hear me and see me okay. In the chat, let me know if you guys can hear me and see me. And I am going to make sure I'm live everywhere else. And it looks like we are live everywhere else. Good, good, good. And we are doing the Praxis 5355. Awesome. You guys can hear me and you can see me. Great. We had some issues with audio the last couple, and it looks like I'm having issues with this audio too. Give me 1 second. Oh my gosh. There we go. I just undid my microphone. Hang on. Oh my God. It should go this way. Oh my goodness, you guys. Hang on 1 second. Oh my God. Does it go this way? There we go. Shoot, y'all. Give me 1 second. So sorry. Of course. And then maybe it's like this. Oh my gosh. Give me 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves. I've got to twist it. Oh my God, it's not going on. There we go. We're going to do a temporary solution here. Let me scoot up. Okay. Can you hear me okay? This microphone. I got to fix it when we're done. Maybe one more turn. Okay. There we go. Happy Saturday, everyone. My microphone just fell off. Okay, great. We're doing fine. We've been very busy here at the Kathleen Jasper Company. We have been working on some new programs and things like that for you guys. I'm going to talk about them more later because we are going to be focusing on this test. But I just want you to know, if you have a student, either your child or a student in your class who is working on SAT, we just built a whole SAT program for high school kids. And it's been like the focus over the last couple of months. And we just finished yesterday, launched it. And so we're a little tired here at Kathleen Jasper LLC, but we are so glad you are here. And I am so glad that you are taking this test, because that means that you are becoming a special education teacher, or perhaps you are getting like your endorsement or whatever, to make sure that even if you are teaching social studies or math or whatever, that you are certified in this area so you can help students, because there are a lot of students on IEPs in general education, and that is the majority of you taking this test. You're going to be kind of in and out of general education, and we want to make sure that we're serving those students as much as we can. And I'll just give you a quick story about tests like this. So I know a lot of people say, why do I have to take this test? Why do I have to get endorsed in special ed? Or why do I have to get endorsed in reading? I'm a social studies teacher, or I'm a science teacher. And I was in the same boat when I was teaching. I was a science teacher and I got reading endorsed. And I will tell you that when I got my reading endorsement, I became such an amazing teacher. I thought it was unnecessary because I was new to teaching. I'm like, don't we all just teach the kids how to read? I didn't realize that there was a whole method to the madness and science behind it. And I learned so much, and I learned how to be a teacher with my reading endorsement. And the same is true about special education. When you learn how to be a special ed teacher or how to serve those students, you just become a better teacher for everybody, because you just understand some fundamentals. So some people are asking, is this for 5543 as well? Yes, I'm showing this book. I have all the books. I have 5355, 5543, and 5355. This is my latest book, so I'm holding that one, but I'm going to show you, we have them all. So whatever you need. The 5543, Tracy, you're going to have a writing section, and I'm going to do the writing at the end of this webinar. So stay on. And even if you don't have a writing section, let's say you're doing this test here, stay for the writing, because it's going to help you with the multiple choice. The writing requires critical thinking, and understanding the multiple choice will help you, or understanding the writing will help you with the multiple choice for sure. Same for me, Leah. I've been a math teacher for 21 years. Okay, so Peggy and Leah are happy to be doing this webinar because they have the online program for this very Praxis test. Good. So you have the online course. Good. This will be a good little just kind of supplementary thing that you can use. I am in the process of getting my bachelor's in elementary with a dual of special education. Awesome, Mary. Good morning. Will this information help with special education curriculum 1 and 2 GACE 581? Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Okay. Someone else said Leah is seeking her endorsement. Yeah, very, very good. I'm telling you, getting my reading endorsement and my special education endorsement made me a better teacher. It just does, And I know, a lot of states require you to take these tests, like to add on to your certificate if you want to work in their counties or in their states. And you're like, why do I have to get my reading test? Just by exposing yourself to this stuff, you're going to be better. So take it as that. I know it can be frustrating because it costs money and time and you're already buried. But if you use this as a chance to learn more about this particular part of education, it's going to help you. So today we're going to break down all of these tests for the 5355, 5354, and 5543. Don't be confused with the numbers. It's just Praxis Special Education. And this is my latest book for that because this is a newer exam. Let me know in the chat if you're required to take this. Tracy's got my 5543 book. Some people are still taking the 5543, which has the rating, but a lot of people have been switched over. This is a relatively new test, and a lot of people have to take this. Courtney said she loved my 5355 book. Thank you, Courtney. I am doing a new thing with my books. If you have the older books, they're fine too. In fact, I do a new edition and people just keep buying the old edition, so it's fine. But I do classroom scenarios now inside of the book, so you can see some of these practices in action. So that's one of the benefits of having the book and the online course. And if you liked it, if you wouldn't mind hopping over to Amazon and giving us a review, that would be great. We're trying to get reviews on our Foundations of Reading book and our brand new Social Studies 5581. It's a high school book. So if you're into those and you bought our books for that, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review, that would be great. Does the 553 It's the 5355, 5543 align with New York special education? Yes. Okay. Let me give you one more thing because we're going to have people here from different states. The Praxis is a certification exam adopted by many states. I think like 36 states use the Praxis in all of their exams or some of their exams. Other states use a company called Pearson. They're two just huge testing companies, and some states choose Praxis, some states choose Pearson, and some states choose a mixture of both. Some of you will take Praxis and then Pearson for other things, okay? Now, it's the same stuff. Special education, it is the understanding of IDEA, that's a federal law, also how we serve these students in the general education classroom. Some of you might be taking a more intense exam for students with severe disabilities, which goes more in depth, but these books that I have are for like the general ed teacher or the general special education teacher. Now, if you are going to specialize in, autism or emotional behavior disturbance, EBD, if you're going to be specializing in an area, you are obviously going to be digging a little deeper, and there might be additional exams you have to take. But for the average special ed teacher, you will most likely have to take one of these exams. Okay. Does Florida use the 5355? No, it does not. It uses the ESE, and this book will help you. Totally. This book will help you. 5354 for Alabama. That's actually an older test. The 5354. This one will work for you if you already got this book, but I also have the 5354 book as well. Okay. But like Yana said, and Yana is my colleague in the chat, if you are in my webinar, and you signed up and everything, Yana Crystal Bossy, you'll see her in here kind of guiding you guys. She's my colleague. She works with me, so she'll give you all of the information you need. But like she says, you need to check with your state. Before you start buying products, check with your state. All of this is for the state. And if you want to figure out, what you use, which tests, go to your State Department of Education website, and you'll be able to find that out there. You can also go to, let me just Google something for you guys, and then we'll get started. Praxis by state. Let me just make sure it pulls up. Okay, let me just zoom in here. Okay, let's share my screen so you can see. If you want to see what is required of you, because Massachusetts does not do the 5355, Carla, I don't believe, but they do a test like it. So let me share my screen here. Okay. So I Googled Praxis by state. Even if your state doesn't use Praxis, your state should still be listed. And what you want to do is view score requirements. Oh, no, sorry. Go back. Praxis teacher certification requirements by state. And they've got a new website. It's okay. I don't know. You'd think with all the money they have, they would have a better website, but I digress. So you select your state. So she said Massachusetts. That's not how you spell Massachusetts. Click that. Go. Now you can see here, there's not much listed here for Massachusetts. They've got some reading assessments they choose here, and some other things. But because there is nothing listed for special education, they use the ESOL and they use the special education here. Or I'm sorry, physical education. But because there's nothing for special ed, go here to their certification website. When you do, you'll be taken here, and then you can go and look for what's going on there. Now, if you do have a Praxis state, Alabama is a Praxis state. Oops, let me go back. It's jumping around. Alabama is a Praxis state. You'll notice that, they have, look at everything that they have. They literally have their elementary education, middle school. When it's a Praxis state where the majority of it comes from Praxis and not Pearson, you're going to have these little drop downs here to tell you because they have adopted Praxis. Now, if you are Massachusetts, just one more thing. Let's just go to Massachusetts really quickly. I just want to show you where to get this. We'll link it up in the email that you're going to get at the end of this. So we'll link up this link here, but let's just say you're in Massachusetts. Let me scroll down. I'm doing this live with you right here. Licenses offered, licensure requirement, testing requirements. All right. And you guys use the MTELs, which is a different thing, but that is by Pearson. And when you click on their online test registration, online test preparation materials, you'll be taken to a site that looks like this. All right. And that's where you can select your test. And you'll see here, they're just set up a little bit differently. Where is their special education? MTEL. Special ed. Do they do exceptional student? I'm not sure. You're going to have to find it, but let me just go to one that let's just say middle school math is the one you need. Okay. This is set up a little bit differently, but it's going to go here like sample multiple choice questions. What's on the test? This is the overview of the test. You're going to want to click that and scroll down and have a look at this. This is Pearson's test specifications. Okay. So if you're a Pearson test person, you're going to look here. And you can Google the name of your test and the word test specification, and you should get an option to do this. Now, if you are, let's go back here. Let's go back to the Praxis people, okay? Let's say you're Alabama and you decide, you decide you're in elementary education, let's just say. Or let's go to special ed since we're doing that. Okay, so here's the 5355, right? They have a practice test and online course if you want to take it from them. Mine's better. But when you say view test details, do you see this? Where is there? They have changed everything around. You don't need to pay for all this. Hang on. Let's go here. One more thing. Praxis 5355 Study Companion. Okay. The Study Companion and the test spec, they are essentially the same thing. See this little button here, PDF, and you've got Special Education Foundation. This will take you to a document that's this test specification. Let me show you really quickly. And I have this in all the books. Okay. So in the front of my book, I have this. It's adapted to make it my own. This is their property. I can't just take their property. I have a similar graph like this to show you the different parts of the exam. And you can see the different percentages. The biggest part is this part here for this particular test. Then you scroll down and there's all this information here. This is the information on the exam. This is not a secretive process. In fact, I use every single one of these as headings in my book. I reword them because, again, this is ETS's, proprietary information. I can't just copy their information, but I take each individual thing, even not just this, not just individual learning differences. I take this and make it a heading and put everything underneath that I possibly can. And then this and make it a heading. I'll show you over here. Let me just show you what I mean. And I think you should too, because you should study this way. So we have human development, and I'm going to show you in my book everything that we've got here. So let me stop sharing this. Let me go back here. I just want to show you how I do things and also how I run this webinar too. So let's go entire screen. Here we go. And you can see that this is human development. And then everything that's in that test spec, I have in my book. And then I have a little classroom scenario that helps you see it in action, because it's very abstract. When talking about like, the special education classroom, what are all these things? What genetic factors, prenatal influences? What does that look like in the classroom? What does that mean? And so I try to give you some insight here, which is helpful. All right. And so that'll help you. Now, today you got a free guide, which is great. There's some questions here. And also we're going to send you the constructed response. I'm going to do this constructed response with you today, but this is just the free. We have the full blown study guides here. And of course the 5354 and the 5543. Now listen really quickly. The 5354 and the 5543 are the exact same exam, except that the 5543 has the writing. Okay. So if you already have one of these books, you don't need to buy another book. Don't do that. You're fine. But just remember the 5543 has the writing, and you need the writing. Okay. So let me just go into the chat really quickly. For some reason, I can't see or hear. My screen just keeps spinning. Okay. It's probably your internet. Virginia requires 5355. Thank you, Christine. I'm in Colorado. Also teaching, getting ready to do the 5002. I just did a webinar on that. Check out my webinars tab. I'll show you where that is at the end. Not only do I have to take the 5355, I have to also take the 5001 and the 5752. Yes, Mary, I know. There's usually 3 to 5 tests teachers have to take. Marilyn takes the 5355. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we're looking here, and mine says Oklahoma uses both Praxis and Pearson. Yep, they do, Tracy. They'll use a mixture. It just depends. So you want to make sure you check that out. And again, we will link up that Praxis Praxis by state, because even if you don't use Praxis, there will be a link there. I bought the 5355. Should I still buy the other online, or is that the book? If you already bought one book, you're good. You don't need to start buying a bunch of books. They all have the same information. They're just kind of moved in different ways. So you're good. The 5355 is my latest and greatest. I do have an audio course and an online course if you need more help, but just listen to me today. We'll go through some things. And if you feel like you want more, we'll do that. I have to take the 5543. Okay, you have writing, Denise. You want to stay till the end because I'm going to go over the writing. Is the webinar about the book? Yes, we are going to be talking. We're going to get into some practice test questions just as soon as I get through some of these questions here. Okay, and then the next thing I just want to reiterate here. Let me stop sharing. You always want to look up your test specification. So when I was in teaching, I got to work down in the curriculum department, and we were trained by major testing companies. They came in and trained us. And the first thing they showed us were the test specifications and blueprints. And you want to do this for your students as well. They have standardized tests at the end of the year that they have to take. So understanding these documents is very important. So that document that I showed you, this one here, this is called a test spec. This information here are the specifics on the exam. It's not a secretive process. They tell you everything that's on the test. And one of the good things is they have these practice questions, these discussion questions, which are open-ended and have to do with critical thinking. So I highly recommend you read through this. Now, I use these to write my books, but I want you to be able to access this as well. All you have to do is Google the name of your test and the words blueprint and test specification. When you do, you will find some documents that will come up. You can do it for any test, the GED, the SAT, the ACT, any major test, it will pop up. So you want to do that for any test your kids are taking, any test, like SAT has a whole thing. ACT has I think it's like a 200-page booklet. And you just want to look through it and kind of look at the discussion topics and things like that. Okay. Now I use them all to write my books. So you're going to get them when you get the books, but you should be accessing them for yourself too. All right. So a couple things to go over, some good words that you want to think about on this exam for special education. One of the major things that you want to think about is equity and inclusion. That's the biggest thing about being a special ed teacher. And I know many of you already know this, and I might be preaching to the choir here, but equity and inclusion are the number one thing. So any answer choices that have to do with those types of practices, they are going to be your right answer. Okay. Also, the term least restrictive environment, LRE, write it down. And it's all over my books. That is when we keep students in the general education classroom as much as possible. Why is that? Well, we don't need to be separating kids into their little groups all the time based on, their exceptionalities or their, now kids do go to AP class, they go to honors, some have to go to a self-contained classroom, but we want to keep kids in the general ed classroom because they need to be with their non-special education peers. If you start just segregating special ed kids on another wing of the school every time, you are doing them a disservice. Now, some students need self-contained. Some students have to go to a special education classroom all day and they stay there. Some stay there most of the day and they go to like culinary class if they're in high school and like art class and things like that. Some kids are on an IEP and they just get accommodations, but they're in general ed all the time. And you also have your gifted students. Your gifted students may be in the AP and honors classes, maybe not. But they are on an IEP. And you have kids who have exceptionalities. I try to call them exceptionalities rather than disabilities because we call it exceptional student education in Florida. So that's what I'm used to. It's a strengths-based way of talking about it. But you'll have kids who are confined to a wheelchair and they're in AP classes. Because just because they're confined to a wheelchair, they have an IEP because they need accommodations because they're in a wheelchair, doesn't mean their brain is in a wheelchair, right? It doesn't mean they're not super smart. So we want to make sure that when we are doing this test, especially, that we are seeing the unique strengths of each student because they do have amazing strengths. Everybody does, regardless of what level of class you are in. And that we are accommodating appropriately so we can keep kids in those general education classrooms. So it might just be that some kids need to sit towards the front of the room. It may be that they have vision impairment, right? They may have a severe vision impairment. That doesn't mean they can't be in honors classes and AP classes. It just means they need help with their eyesight and they're on an IEP, right? It could also mean a learning disability or a processing disability, right? That they need extra time or they need to be able to use their notes on their exams. Whatever the accommodation is, that's where that equity comes in. Not everybody starts at the same starting line. Some kids start up here. I'll give you an example of me. I totally would have been diagnosed with ADHD for sure. As a kid, they didn't do that back in the 80s. But I grew up in Naples, Florida. I came from a family that has advanced degrees. My mother and father both have, my father has a master's, my mother has a doctorate. I have no learning disabilities. I have a lot of, I'm starting up here. I'm starting right up here. Okay. And it doesn't mean I didn't work hard to get my doctorate and all those things, but I started at a place that was pretty good. Other kids who have learning disabilities or exceptionalities or other reasons might start down here. So we need to kind of make it equal, equity, right? So that we're all sort of starting at the same part. That's what equity means. It's like, think about a tall kid and a short kid trying to see over the fence, right? The tall kid can just see over the fence. The short kid is down here, can't see over the fence. So we put a little stool under the kid so he can see over the fence, right? That's equity. It's not equality is everybody gets the same. Everybody getting the same is not necessarily equity because every kid has their own thing that they need. So just remember that equity and inclusion, good words on the exam, and least restrictive environment, making sure we're keeping kids in the general education classroom. Okay. We also have a ton of other good words. And another thing I want you to think about on this exam is to work backwards. Let me know in the chat if you are one of those who works backwards on your exams because you've seen my videos before. Strategic test makers do not start from the top of something and work all the way down. They start with the answer choices and they work backwards. They cross out bad words in the answer choices and they zero in on good words, especially for the type of questions you're going to see on this exam. This exam is going to have a lot of scenarios. You're going to have a whole big long paragraph at the top, and then all your answer choices are going to be super long, and a lot of them are going to all look good. And you need to make sure you can find those good words and zero in on those and find the bad words and cross them off, because there are some bad phrases we don't necessarily want to use on this test. I just gave you a couple of good words. Let me tell you some bad words to stay away from. Extra homework. Typically on these exams, not the right answer because it's attached to students who struggle. And extra homework for students who struggle typically is not the best approach. They need an individualized, targeted approach. So individualized, targeted, those are good words. Extra homework, sort of blanketed approaches are not good practices. Let's see, what else? Bad words. Anything that sounds punitive. So you're going to have students who have behavioral disabilities in your classroom. And sometimes extrinsic rewards are going to work with these kids. But you know, we do call the parents, of course, we keep parents in the loop. But on this test, calling the parents to tell them their child is being bad is typically not the right answer, just so you know. I know you're going to call parents in real life, and I know some of you are at your wits' end with some of the outbursts in class and things like that. Some kids can't help but outburst in class. It's part of their exceptionality. It's part of their, you know, it's in their IEPs. And other kids have ADHD. Other kids, you know, sometimes if you're in general ed and they don't have an IEP, sometimes kids can just be rowdy and annoying sometimes, you know, so can adults. So just understand that when it comes to this test, and I would say in life, try your hardest not to be punitive, but instead be proactive instead of reactive. A lot of stuff on this exam is going to be about being proactive. For example, planned ignoring. This is a good word on the exam. When you know you're going to have a student with EBD, emotional behavior disturbance, or somebody who just calls out, seeking attention, whatever, in the general ed classroom too, student who's not on an IEP, planned ignoring is like, you know what's going to happen and you decide to ignore the behavior and instead praise the students who are doing the good behaviors and do that over and over and over again. And a lot of times that behavior will diminish. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect solution. I'm not here to pretend like I know what's going on in your classroom. I'm just saying the research shows that that works. And that is a good word on this exam. So being proactive instead of reactive when it comes to discipline, classroom management, things like that. Now, it may not say being proactive in the answer choice, but the scenario in the answer choice will talk about being proactive. So be on the lookout for that. The other thing that you want to be on the lookout for is data driven. You're going to be using a lot of data to make decisions about your students if you're a good teacher. And so anytime you're using test scores or even behavior tallies, like you may be doing some MTSS work, multi-tiered systems of support. I go through that in my books and on my courses. And you might be tallying up every time a student calls out, or you might be taking anecdotal notes, some formative assessment as you're walking around the room. That's all data. And that works. So you want to make sure that you're using that to make decisions in the classroom. Those are good words. Calling home to yell about a kid, not good. Extra homework, not necessarily good. Anything punitive, not necessarily good. Oh, here's another one. Pairing students together is great when they're learning. Cooperative learning is great when they're learning. You never want to depend on another student for interventions. This is a trap on the exam. Let's say you have a student who's struggling, whatever it is, and one of the answer choices is have that student work with another student to like get up to speed on something. No. It's your job as the teacher to intervene and put those targeted interventions in place to help your student. You're the one with the knowledge, right? However, students working together is very powerful. So if they're working together to learn something new, good. If they're working together and one of the students is acting as a tutor or an interventionist, like moving in to help the student, that's not good. So be on the lookout for that. Working together to learn, yes. Using students to differentiate instruction, no, you got to do that on your own. Okay. All right. So let's have a look at some of the answer choices. Somebody asked about, I need more about working backwards and what that means. Thanks for sharing. Tracy, I'm about to do it right now. So let's have a look at my presentation here. We're going to go through some practice test questions on your free study guide that you got. And you can see here, I've got a relatively large question for number 1. All right. Now, I always start with the answer choices first if it's like big like this. And on the test, sometimes you'll have like 1 or even 2 paragraphs, okay? If it's a 1-sentence question, obviously you can read it. And if it's only 1 word in the answer choices, obviously you can't really work backwards. But when I see this type of thing, I definitely want to work backwards, okay? Now, someone's saying working backwards is taking me too long. Dana, it may not work for you, but when we work backwards, we want to be quick. Now, I'm talking you through this. I am going through each one and telling you everything. What you're going to do is be like, no, maybe. All right, let me read the question. Some people don't like this method. A lot of people do. Most people text me or email me and say, oh my God, working backwards is a game changer, especially on the scenario questions. Start with what's going on here first. So let's have a look at A. Threaten to call home and let the student's parents know about the situation. Well, remember, I just told you that's bad. It may not even say threaten to call home. It might say call home and let the parents know about the situation. That tells me you're sort of reaching out to parents and you're depending on them to do something. And that's typically the wrong answer on the exam. In real life, certainly we reach out to parents. That's why sometimes the test doesn't match real life. Okay. B, ignore the behavior, continue with the reading, and praise students who exhibit appropriate reactions. So this is PBS, positive behavior supports. This is all part of being a special ed teacher. Again, like Lakita said in the chat here, if you're in the chat, in the actual webinar, you can see the comments here. If you're on social, you can't see the comments. You can sign up for the webinar and get in. The link is in the description. But it does work for some and not all. Some kids are very determined to get your attention. So, but planned ignoring does work. I like B. Let's read the other ones. C, offer the student a reward if she behaves. Okay, no. That's called extrinsic rewards. Extrinsic rewards do work. Do not get me wrong. I have always given out candy. I was a high school teacher. I once offered chicken sandwiches to students from Chick-fil-A if they got a good grade on their EOC. It worked wonders. Like, you can bribe the kids. On the exam, we're not going to do that. Now, some questions will talk about incentives for students who are working on their behavior. So some reward systems do work, but they need to be planned out really, really well. And this is just like, oh, listen, if you behave today, I'll give you a cookie. That's not going to work. So C is out. D, send the student to time out until the student exhibits the appropriate behavior. No, punitive. Looks like B is going well. And if you hadn't read the book, you wouldn't know that ignoring the behavior is actually a strategy. It totally is a strategy. So let's have a look at the question. A teacher is trying to motivate a special needs student to exhibit appropriate behaviors during reading time. The student continues to call out and seek attention. What should the teacher do? So if the student is seeking attention and you are giving the student attention by saying, stop that, don't do that, go to timeout, you're giving the student attention. It's negative attention, but it's still attention. So in this situation, ignoring the behavior would be something good. So that's why B is the correct answer. All right, let's have a look here. Another one. We got answer choices and a rather long thing. ICEBD kind of stands out here. A, call home and let Clara's parents know she's not following directions. Nope. B, ask the principal to provide a paraprofessional to help Carla with classroom transitions. Now, you might say, well, yeah, that's good. I have a para. We're not asking for paras, even though every single special ed teacher should have a para. I also think that general education teachers should have the ability to work with paras because paras provide so much support for our students for our students whose first language is not English. Also, our special ed students. Wouldn't it be wonderful for us to have paras in every class? It would, but guess what? Not in this economy and not with all the cuts. And on this test, they expect you to be able to differentiate with or without a para. So B is out. C, build classroom routines and practice procedures regularly with Carla. Oh, routines and procedures. And I'm going to show you something. Let me just check something before I show you here. All right, I'm going to show you something really quickly in 1 second why this is so important. And then D, pair Carla with a student who understands the classroom routines and procedures. Now, D, you might say, hey, that's cool, like a buddy system. A buddy system. Yeah, that's awesome. Nope, not on this test. B is best. First of all, routines and procedures are good words, good practices for everyone. Okay. I actually am going to be launching a course on classroom management. And if you look at any of my videos on TikTok or YouTube, and I'm talking about this, if you can implement practice routines and procedures that students do over and over and over and over again, and if they fall out of line in the middle of the year, you practice them again before any learning takes place, you will have a different class. Your classroom management problems will be reduced drastically. It doesn't mean they go away totally, but when you have solid routines and procedures in your classroom and everybody knows and understands them, you've modeled them, you've practiced them, and everybody does them perfectly, the misbehavior goes down drastically. If you do not have routines and procedures, it's a cluster. It's not working. All right. So C's got all the good words. And let me just show you something really quick. I'm going to share my screen here. This is why I talk about good words. All right. So what I did was I did routine here, right? And hit enter. Notice it comes up 3 times. Uses routines and procedures. Good words. This is where I get all the good words, you guys. It's in the actual document of the tests. Routines, routines, routines. All right. So, feedback. Let's use here, data collection for progress monitoring. This is where I get the words that I tell you. If you see it in an answer choice or a practice that aligns with it. So it might not say data collection for progress monitoring. It might say the teacher is walking around the room and taking anecdotal notes to determine how she's going to move forward the next day. That's data collection for progress monitoring. Right? So make sure that you kind of see the words and you go, okay, data collection, good word. Well, what does that look like in the classroom? Also, just in case they don't say data collection, they might say formative assessment, those types of things. So just want to be sure there. And that's where I'm getting this stuff for you guys. Okay. Little tricks of the trade. This is what I've learned over the years. I've been studying these exams for like my whole life, not my whole life, but my whole professional life. All right. So C looks good all day. Let's read the question. Carla is a student with emotional behavior disorder, EBD. She frequently becomes overwhelmed when transitions occur in class. She will often act out or not participate when there is a transition from one activity to the next. What can the teacher do to help Carla? All right. I would say you probably would cross out A and B, whether you worked backwards or not, but you would probably be between C and D. Parent, a lot of people think pairing the student up. Here's the thing about this test you want to be on the lookout for. Transitions, students with exceptionalities sometimes find transitions to be overwhelming. So not only practice routines and procedures, but also what might help the student. I'm just expanding on this in case you get it a different way. Maybe a visual with pictures on it, especially somebody with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Someone who is on the spectrum may find this, like when you switch up classes, to be very overwhelming, right? And you might have this as a writing prompt for 5543. It might say that, what are you going to do for the student? So you could provide a visual schedule for the student. This is number one, making sure you have routines and procedures. Just think about it. Like, don't you love your routine? I cannot live without my routines. I am like, and my dog, she goes for a walk every day at the same time. If her routines get screwed up, everybody's messed up, right? When you go on vacation and you've been off your eating routine and you've been off your sleeping routine and you've just been like a dumpster from drinking and eating and whatever, not sleeping properly and just doing nothing, you say to yourself, God, I can't wait to get back to my routine. It's the same for students. They love a classroom where they know exactly what is going to happen every day. It is so comforting. And especially for someone who has exceptionalities like ASD or EBD, predictability is comforting. It makes them feel good. So a visual schedule could help. Of course, practice routines, also a countdown, perhaps. Maybe there's a clock on the board that says, okay, in a minute, we're going to be changing. It just depends on what the students need. And look, every person benefits from these. So even if you only have one student in your class with EBD, guess what? All kids benefit from classroom routines and procedures. And so do adults. When you go into a professional development after school and the assistant principal doesn't have her what together, and she's like getting papers shuffled and everybody's coming in and high-fiving and it's just a total, free-for-all, you're like, why am I here? I want to go home. I don't want to do this, but when you come in and it's like, sign in, we're going to be done in 15 minutes. I need these 3 steps. Boom, boom, boom. You're like, yes, please, let's do this. And there's an agenda and we stick to the agenda. Don't you love that? I love that. I love that. And so do students. So really understand this. This can be given to you on the exam in a variety of ways. And this, make sure you understand, transitions can be stressful. Visual schedule, practice routines and procedures, perhaps a timer or letting somebody know, hey, we're about to transition. Get ready. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready. Here we go. We're about to do this, just giving them that extra support. Okay. And again, working backwards helps you get rid of the bad stuff and zero in on the good stuff. All right. So let's have a look at the answer choices here. Continuing interventions throughout the entire school year, maintaining detailed records of student success, holding students accountable for their learning, maintaining an inclusive and least restrictive environment. I don't even have to read the question, and that's the answer. Okay. Now, continuing intervention sounds good. Maintaining detailed records sounds good. Holding students accountable for their learning sounds good. This is where A, B, C, and D all sound good. And if you're a brand new teacher, and I get this a lot from people, they say, I was on the test and all 4 of the answer choices looked good. I didn't know which one to pick. This is where the good words come in. And I have a good words list in the back of these books always. And you're going to go to those test specifications and find those good words. You can get them on the Pearson one too. Let me show you where the good words are in the Pearson one, because I know some of you guys are taking Pearson. Hang on. Let me stop sharing real quick. Going to jump out. Let me share really quick. So let's say you're a Pearson test taker. All right. You're going to Google your test name and you're going to Google, this is the wrong one to use for that. Let me go out here. Let me use a more middle school math is going to be more mathematics. Let's do reading specialist. That's going to have some good math. You're taking a math test. If you're becoming a math teacher, typically you're taking a math test. It's not going to have it's going to have the math skills in there though. But look at this. Demonstrate knowledge of basic concepts of print. This is reading now. This is not special ed because I couldn't find their special ed test here. I don't have time to really look. But you can see discuss authentic complex text. Good word. Let's see if they have the words target. Oop. Let's go back here. Sorry. Where did we go? There we go. Let's see if they have the words. Let me go Control F. Target. Oop, there it is. Look, targeted instruction. Always a good word on the test. Just one there. Okay, let's see. Multi-tiered systems of supports. That's part of special education. We're going to talk about that. But you can see all of this. Analyze assessment data. All of this is all good words. Okay, so I want to make sure you understand to be looking at these test specifications so that you can zero in, and that's what I just did on here. All right. That's what I just did on this one here. Inclusive, least restrictive environment. Those are two of the best words. Okay. And I didn't even have to read this, but let's read it. Which of the following should be the teacher's goal when administering interventions or accommodations for students with special needs? Now, if I read this first, probably if I'm a new teacher, all of these sound good, but we have to be strategic on these exams. You have to think like a test maker, not a test taker. That is what I say to everyone. And I'm sure you've heard it on my videos and everything else. Think like a test maker, not a test taker. And you think like a test maker by reading the test maker's blueprint and test specification, because it tells you exactly what they're thinking like. And then you read my books because I put all this stuff in the books, right? So making sure you understand all of that. All right, let's go to number 4. Now, number 4 is one where we can't use our backwards approach here because it's just one word or two word, like there's nothing to cross off here. All right. So let's go ahead and read the question. A teacher is administering a functional behavior assessment. Right away, functional behavior assessments has to do with behaviors and methods you use to function in the real world. I'm going to talk about this in a second. Let me read the rest of the question. To a student who is having outbursts in class, which of the following is the teacher trying to determine by using a functional behavior assessment? Well, it's not cognitive. It's not skills. Typically, functional behavior assessments or functional assessments has to do with your day-to-day living. Like if you're doing a functional assessment, can you fix your own plate? Can you do hygiene? Some students really need help with this, right? These are students who are probably in a self-contained classroom for a lot of the day or their own classroom. They're in a life skills class. They're learning like how to live an independent life out into the world because that's what we want for everybody. We want them to be independent, have jobs, enjoy their lives. So one of the goals of functional behavior assessments is looking at what behaviors you need to be successful. For example, the lunchroom. If you walk into the lunchroom like a crazy person and you're pulling things off the table and you're making loud noises, you're probably not going to have the best time in the lunchroom. People are going to, go, what is going on? And they're going to move away from you and you're not going to be able to function in there. So if you have an exceptionality where that's kind of your default is to maybe make noises or whatever, if we can help you to understand when we go to the lunchroom, we are quiet. We walk to the line, we get our tray, we get our food, we go sit at the table. We don't touch anybody. Those are skills and functions that we need to know. And even kids in general ed need a functional behavior. They'll walk in and smack somebody over the head and flip off their hat and things like that. So, all of that is all about the functional behavior. It's not about academics. It's not about cognitive. Cognitive is about what your brain does, right? Functional is like understanding the world around you and how you need to function in order to live your life. Now, effects of consequences or causes of the behavior. C is going to be better here because if you're trying to figure out what's going on, this is another way of being proactive, causes of the behavior. For example, let's say you're doing a functional behavior assessment, and I'm going to use something so lame here because I'm on the spot and it's live, but let's just say you're walking to the lunchroom and you notice that every time a student passes some bulletin board, maybe they're super stimulated by it or something. And they stop and they stare at the board and they're touching it or whatever, right? And you've tried to work with the student about it. And you notice that it's the board. It's overstimulating the student, let's just say. So you decide to take another route to the lunchroom and you notice that the student walks in the line and does everything fine. You just figured out the cause of the behavior and you're being proactive. So if you don't want the student to step out of the lunch line and you don't want the student to be mesmerized by the thing because you have somewhere to go, then you might take another route to the lunchroom if possible, right? Or you might speak to the student about the bulletin board and what we need to do and practice what we need to do when we get to the bulletin board. This is kind of a silly example, but the cause of the behavior would be a very colorful bulletin board that's overstimulating. And so this is super important. It also indicates proactive. All right, let's have a look at number 5 here. All right, this is an important one. According to IDEA, an IEP should be revised every year, every single year. I know we're in some schools where it's not happening, and that's unfortunate. But every year, here's the thing, the goals. The goals is the most important part of the IEP, arguably, because the goals, they are what the student is working towards. So you can't have the same goals year to year. A first grader is going to have different goals than a second grader, and a second grader is going to have different goals than a fifth grader. So that IEP should be revised every single year. And if they're not, you're breaking the law. The school is breaking the law. Now, let's talk about the law really quickly. I have it all written here and broken down, IDEA, but I want to talk about where you also should be going to get some information. Okay. So you want to go to the website, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. There's going to be a lot of information here for you, and it's laws and things like that. But this will help you kind of understand what's going on. So, you can click about IDEA. You can just have a look at it here. You can look at policy documents, statute, and regulations. This is helpful. You can just look up. You don't have to memorize everything, but just, have a look at things. Just, right here, if you click on Part B, you can see, like, in general, they'll have some, let's see here. They have some things about assistive technology device. This is going to be on the test. And it's got just a little definition here. Now, again, I have it all in my book, but there's something about going to the source, right? You want to be looking at all kinds of things. And there might be some other more information here. I don't expect you to memorize this website. It's just a good place to go. And this is where it is a federal law. And I get questions a lot about, what do you think is going to happen to IDEA with the new administration and this and that? I have no idea. I hope they keep funding this, because a lot of states that don't have the money rely on federal funding in order to serve their special education students. So it's really important that we keep this going. But regardless of who's in power, we're teachers, we're going to continue to serve our students. So it doesn't really matter. But this will help you understand what's going on. And of course, there's updates, policy documents. So whenever there's an update, they should be printed here and put in there. You can see general provisions. We have here Part A, Part B, Part C. Infants and toddlers with disabilities, there's a little bit of a different mode for that. Once they get into school, we do stuff like that. For them, we help them with their IEPs, but infants and toddlers do get services early on in life. And you can see here, public education in the least restrictive environment for children with disabilities ages 3 through 21. This right here answers like 3 questions. Okay. First of all, like 4 questions or 3 questions. A free appropriate education, good word. That's called FAPE, free appropriate public education. That means regardless of what your exceptionality is, what you need, the public schools provide you with what you need, which could be assistive technology, extra time on tests, a different classroom, whatever it is, in the least restrictive environment, meaning we're going to keep you in the general ed classroom as much as possible, and as safely as possible. And then for children with disabilities, ages 3 through 21 is in the education system. This answers a question. They might say, how long is a student eligible for services? Through 21. And then there are other things, rights that people have in college and in their jobs. You have to advocate for yourself, but that is 3 through 21 is the public schools can provide you. Okay. What is the link for the IDEA website? You can just Google IDEA, but it's idea.gov. We will link it up in the email you're going to get at the end. Everybody gets an email at the end of all of my webinars with the replay link and everything else. All right. Okay. Now I want to talk about the writing. Stay with me, even if you don't have the writing on your test, because it's critical thinking. It's going to help you with the multiple choice. So let's have a look at what this might look like on the test. Now, listen, it could be a quick little paragraph with a couple of questions on it, right? It could be a small paragraph with a piece of data, like a whole bunch of data. Maybe it's behavioral data, things like that, right? Or it could be something really short. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. You want to be thinking about strategies you would give your students, and you're going to be able to apply them to any question. First of all, least restrictive environment should be somewhere in your writing or allude to that, right? make sure you're prepared to say, whatever the strategy is you're doing, you're going to try to keep the student in a least restrictive environment. Also, you differentiated instruction, targeted interventions. You might want to do MTSS. Make sure you have a few things in mind how you would accommodate students. I have them all in the book. Grab onto those and remember those good words. Because if you use the good words that I talk about in the study guide over and over again, that you've been on the lookout for, if you use that in your writing, you're going to get a better grade on your writing. Okay. Do we write for the 5355? No, just multiple choice. Only the 5543 is writing. Okay. Denise, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you so much. Okay. So let's have a look at one. I just want to show you, and we're going to continue to work backwards. Okay. A lot of people want to start up here. And then they read all of this, then they read this, then they forget all of this, and they have to go back and read it. Okay. We're not doing that. We're being very strategic. Start with the task first, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be able to come up with something, okay, on your own. All right, right here. List 2 ways the teacher can differentiate and accommodate Julio so he can properly take notes that will help him on test day. All right, this just gave something away here, okay? This just gave it away. 2 ways to take notes. I'm thinking in my mind, maybe a template. Maybe allow him to record what I'm saying as the teacher and write notes later. Extra time. Some sort of supports. I don't have to read this to come up with note-taking accommodations. I can jot those down on my scratch paper very, very quickly. All right. And then explain why these 2 accommodations or differentiation would be effective. This is called the rationale. This is usually a thing on all writing tests. You say what you're going to do, and then you say why it's important or why it helps. That's just really, really important. That's why we do it. Okay. It's sort of like, you don't have to say, well, 50% of students, according to research, because you don't have that research available to you, but a lot of this is research based. Okay. All right. So I already know right away, if he's having a hard time taking notes, I'm going to do probably a note-taking template and allow him to record my lectures. Okay. I'd probably do that for all students because they all need help with note-taking. So, all right, let's have a look. Julio is a student with a processing disability. All right. One of his IEP goals is to take notes during direct instruction. Direct instructions when the teacher is standing in the front of the room and like giving the knowledge. One of his accommodations is to be able to use those notes on classroom tests. This is a normal accommodation, especially with students with processing disabilities or with short-term or long-term memory loss. Notes on your classroom assessments is usually an accommodation. However, Julio has a hard time taking notes and writing down important information. Well, that makes sense, right? If you have a processing disability, I'm like, oh, okay, well, write notes and then use them on the test. This is why getting endorsed in special education is so important, because a teacher, let's just say a general education teacher in science or social studies or a new teacher might say, oh, problem solved, kid. Go ahead and you take notes during my lecture and I'll let you use them on the test. Boom. Done and done. Well, guess what? He has a processing disability. So he's not just going to be able to go, okay, I'll take notes and just start taking copious notes and have them ready for test day. There has to be interventions along the way where you're really setting the student up for success, right? He becomes overwhelmed because he cannot write as quickly as the teacher presents the information, right? He's got a processing disability, so he's trying to process and like hear it from her, write it down. And again, students who are not on an IEP have a hard time doing this, so someone with a processing disability definitely is. Okay. Even when the teacher slows down, he's having a hard time. Sometimes Julio gives up altogether. Well, we don't want that. Okay. Julio wants to do well on his exams and is motivated to meet his IEP goal. Here's the thing, especially in high school that I've seen, because I taught high school. I had different kids on IEPs. They were so funny, but they all were motivated by their IEP goals. They wanted to meet those goals. There's something about writing it down and like having a meeting about it and like expressing and having adults say, hey, this is a goal. All right, let's do it. So as teachers, we should be helping Julio meet that goal. And that means to not just say, hey, you can use your notes, but also help him write the notes. Okay. The teacher wants to accommodate Julio further so he can achieve his goal. And there's a way to sort of disguise this accommodation for all the kids because they all need help with this. Okay. So right away, template for note taking. Perhaps maybe even I'll write some notes in there. Also want to think about pulling the accommodations away when he starts to do well. That's another special ed thing. Once your student starts to do well and doesn't need those accommodations anymore or those differentiated approach, you can start to pull them away so they start to work on their own. But don't just snatch them away. Say, hey, you know what? I think you're a good note taker now. You don't need the template anymore. Or maybe you need less of a template. It's not as specific. All right. So let's take a look at how I did this. Now, this is how I would do this. I would go right up here and say 2 types of accommodations and differentiation. Notice it asked that right here. Bullet number 1. I want to make sure the grader of my essay sees that I am like, this is my first one. This is my second one. You do not want to write a whole introduction that goes around the world before you get to what you're trying to say. These people are busy who are reading these essays and they get super annoyed when it's like, they can't find your point. Get to the point. And you can see here 2 types of accommodations. Provide Julio with note-taking template and allow Julio to record the direct instruction and provide him time to listen to the recorded. So not only am I allowing him to record it, I'm giving him time later, let's just say during maybe individual work where he can then go put his headphones on and write notes. And that will help him like pause the recording and write. This is accommodations. This is inclusion. This is helping Julio. All right. And again, this scenario here could help you with so many other multiple choice questions because this goes beyond just, saying, hey, here's some extra time. It's very, very targeted. All right. So here comes the rationale. Because Julio is overwhelmed by the enormity of the note-taking task, the teacher can provide him with a template to guide his note-taking. And I came up with that template before ever reading the actual thing. The teacher can, and now here I get specific. The teacher can map out what is important in the lecture and set the template up as a graphic organizer. Okay, here's something that I did here. I got straight to the point, first of all. Because he's overwhelmed, the teacher can provide him with a note-taking template, okay? Then I get specific and I sort of show you how it would work. I don't stay in abstract, a template. Well, what does a template look like? How are you going to use the template, right? This is where you get extra points when you're writing for any constructed response. So you may not have a constructed response for this test you're taking if you're not taking the 5543, but you might have it for reading or whatever test you're taking. Get specific. So I say here, the teacher can map out what is important and set the template up as a graphic organizer. Then Julio will be guided on what is important and what he should write down. Also, as Julio becomes better at the skill, Julio can start to write his own notes and the teacher can slowly remove the template support. Okay. So there is that reinforcement there or that rationale there. As Julio becomes better, he can start to write notes on his own. Okay, this guides him to what's important. I might even add one more sentence here. Something like allowing him to use a note-taking template is an accommodation that helps Julio stay in the least restrictive environment. If you wanted to get very high marks on this, I might add one more sentence there that just mentions least restrictive environment. Providing Julio with this template keeps him in the least restrictive environment while also accommodating his needs. Okay, another one here. Another support that would help Julio would be to record direct instruction and give him time to fill in his template or notes at his own pace. Let me move this up because my head is blocking it. Sorry. Julio can pause the recording to take time to write his notes. This will also reinforce concepts because Julio will be hearing the lecture multiple times, once with the class and later on his own. He can pause and replay the recording when necessary. So that rationale is all kind of wrapped up in there. This will reinforce concepts because he will be hearing the lecture multiple times and he can pause and replay. All right. And I got specific here. He can pause the recording to take time to write his notes. You get specific. He could go to the back of the room during individual time and listen. So there's a lot of things going on here. It's not just a template and it's not just recording. It's like the time he needs. It's the support he needs to do this task to push him towards his goal. Another rationale you might say is this method helps Julio get closer to his goal of taking notes, taking better notes. All of this would work. And again, it does not have to be a rendition of War and Peace. Like, you just need 2 paragraphs here. You can see I kind of blocked them off here. It's okay to even do it. All it said here was list 2 ways. Did I list? Yes, I did, right here. And then it said explain why. There's the rationale. Are these 2 paragraphs the rationale? Yes, they are. But I also got specific how they would be used. That's important too. I see a lot of times people are not specific enough. They sort of stay in the abstract place. Oh, he's overwhelmed. He should do a note-taking intervention. Note-taking interventions help students because it will bring them towards their goal. Well, what is a note-taking intervention? What type of note-taking intervention? How would you use it? Answer those questions. Make sure that you're specific. The terms, for example, also signal to the grader of your essay that you're about to show them a specific example. That's very helpful. Okay. All right. Now let's talk briefly. Let me get into the chat here. All right. Yes, Brandy, the webinar is recorded. Looks like Yana answered you. Do you know how long it takes to get your score back once the test is completed? Okay. Typically on the multiple choice tests that have no writing, like this test, you will get an unofficial score right when you go to hit submit. There will be an unofficial score there. Typically, that score matches your official score. Typically. Sometimes it doesn't. Now, it's rare, but sometimes it doesn't. So if you passed and on your unofficial score, you should feel pretty good, especially if you passed by a lot. Like if you passed by a lot, whatever. Now, sometimes with a multiple choice only test, you won't get your score back. And you will have to wait. That could be a few things. It could be that they are evaluating the test. These tests are constantly being worked on. That doesn't mean they're changing the test. A lot of people say, oh, they changed it. I got a different test this time. These are standardized assessment. You are not going to get the same exact test every time. You might, but there are banks full of items. So they might be in the test evaluating. They might be pulling questions out, putting questions in. They're not changing the test. They're just putting in different questions. If that is happening, they will not release a score right away, unofficial. You'll have to wait for your official. Typically, the official takes 2 weeks to your email, typically. Now, on the 5543, which does have writing, you will not get an unofficial score because there's a writing portion and a human is going to be grading that, and you have to wait. Typically 2 to 3 weeks. It can take longer. It depends on when you took the exam. Here in Oklahoma, it takes a month. Those that have taken it have told me this. Yeah. And sometimes it could take a month, and sometimes you'll take it and boom, you get a response in 2 weeks. There is no set time. It just depends. There might be this time of year, there's a larger volume of people taking these exams. This is like the busy testing season for all tests, ACT, SAT, certification exams. So it may not come to you as quickly as you would like. It's okay. Just do your best to try to chill out about it. Does the Virginia test 5355 have writing? I don't believe the 5355 does not have a writing portion. So if you're taking the 5355, it's all multiple choice. It's the 5543 that has the writing. All right, let me talk to you about a few more free resources you can have a look at. Now, of course, I told you about the specs. I told you about the IDEA website. I also want to show you where you can get more stuff. So my website, I'm always doing free webinars. This webinar is here. We're doing this. I'm doing PLT the following week. And then at the end of April, I'm doing a teacher interview process. This is really good. People love this. Most people who take this webinar and who get my online course get the job. If you look at the the reviews also on my YouTube channel. Typically, I used to hire teachers, so I know exactly what they're going to ask you, and I know exactly how you should respond. So come to that. We'll link it up. You'll see it everywhere, so don't worry. I also have past webinars here. So I have the reading, I have the 5001, I have ESOL, I have Start Your School Year Off with Success. I'm going to do another one of these over the summer. A lot of classroom management here, how to lesson plan. There's some older ones here, but these are going to be coming up. PLT is next week, and the following week is teacher resume. Then I've got leadership resume and interview coming up. Another teacher interview resume coming up because this is the season everybody is changing jobs and looking for jobs. And then I have a, what else do I have that month? Ooh, AI for teachers. I'm telling you guys, I've learned so much about AI. I cannot wait to share it with teachers because it's going to make your life so much easier. That's coming at the end of May. You'll get notified in emails, so don't worry. The next thing I have is my YouTube channel. I have tons of videos on my YouTube channel, live subject area sessions, popular videos, Praxis Core, PLT. If you're looking to become an assistant principal, I have a lot on there for leadership, math. I have tons of playlists. You definitely want to check that out. Check that out. Teaching reading is a very popular playlist because there are a lot of reading questions on all of the exams. Okay. I also did this note-taking method that my teacher taught me when I was a kid, and I teach to my students. I love this. I've got a lot of shorts and things like that here. Also, I teach a lot on TikTok. I am always on TikTok. I like it because it's shorter. I'm doing a lot on SAT and all of that. And so I want to make sure you check me out on TikTok if you like the shorter stuff. And I answer a lot of questions here as well. Now, one other thing I want to show you here, we have the paid study guide. Let me just share this. I just want to show you a couple things. So this is the 5355. When you buy from us, it's a digital download, okay? And it comes to you in an email. You can save it to your computer. It's a PDF. You can use your PDF tools, all of that, right? If you prefer a physical copy, click this link here and it will take you to our physical study guide on Amazon. We cannot offer you the offer code today. You're going to get an offer code in the email, and I believe it's in the chat too. You're going to get 20% off for attending the webinar today. We can't do it on Amazon because I have to unpublish the book and republish it. And that becomes very dicey because it has to be approved. It has to take 24 hours. And it's like, I'm not taking my book down for 24 hours. So this does not have an offer code, unfortunately. And there are some books for cheaper. This one doesn't offer it because it's pretty new. I recommend not getting the used books, guys, because it's going to have writing in it. You don't want a study guide with somebody else's notes in it. Okay. So just go for the free, or not the free, for the Prime, and grab that. And it'll get to you in a couple of days. You can see we have lots of 5-star reviews on this book. People love this book. I'm really proud of this book. I'm proud of all of them. This is one of my latest books. Okay. Now going back, we also have an audio course. This is great. The 5355 book and audio course go really well together. I also have an online course. Let's go here. Where is my special education? 5354 online course and 5543 online course. I don't have one for the 5355 because these cover everything. So if you'd like an online course that's a lot like this, what I'm doing today, grab the 5354, the 5543. But I love the study guide and the audio course. It's like a podcast and me talking through the whole book. It's not read to you. It's me like just chatting with you about it like a podcast would be. And that's the audio course there. Okay. Now, another thing I want to share with you guys, we're super excited. I've just launched KMJ Learning, and this is for high school students. And so if you have a high school student who's working on their SAT, I have a whole online course for this and a new YouTube channel and everything. We're going to link it up in the email, but this is our new venture here. And it's right now we have one product, the online course. It's set up, as you can see, just like our other courses are, if you've been in our courses. And I teach them how to use the Desmos calculator and all of the tips and tricks. I actually started out as an ACT, SAT person. That was my company. And then I got bombarded with teachers who needed help with their certification exams. And that just like took over. So I stopped doing SAT, ACT, but I miss it. I love the high school kids. If you've got someone who is, working on that, definitely check this out. And your offer code that you're getting with this webinar will work because you can use it here for if you have a student who is working with SAT and you'd like to use your offer code from today's webinar, you can do that here as well. So that'll help you. We're moving towards a whole new venture here at Kathleen Jasper, KMJ Learning. And I'm so glad you guys are here with me. Now, let's see. Is that it? I think that's it. Remember, this is the book or this one or the 5543 or the 5354 that I have Praxis. But if you are, in Massachusetts trying to find a book, whatever, this will still work for you, but it's not going to be exactly aligned. But typically the subjects are the same. Okay. Pearson doesn't seem to have these numbers attached to their test. So I'm confused on what is the special ed standards exam equivalent. Let's try to find it. Hang on. Tell me what state you're in. Shauna, tell me what state you're in, and I will try to find that for you. I know Massachusetts. Let's find Massachusetts here. Let me go out. Special education test. Hang on. Before I share screen, I'm just going to. All right. General information, subject matter. Looks like it's the CMR 28 special ed. Nope, that's a law. Hang on, just give me 1 second. I'm trying to find required tests. I don't see, maybe they require you to have, oh, here we go. Yeah, it's teacher of students with moderate disabilities. So let me go back to the required test. Let me share my screen here with you guys so that I can show you. I think it's here. So we have, I scroll down here, subject matter test. This is for Massachusetts. Yours are going to be, every state is different. There's 50 states with 50 different ways. So I don't know which one, but you can see here, teachers of students with moderate disabilities. And then it has your scores you need here. So you need early childhood and foundations of reading, which I have. In addition, competency review for the provisional licenses. So it looks like they don't have a specific test, but you have to do something else for that. Let me go back. What are you? You're in Idaho. Shauna's in Idaho. All right, let me go back to here and let me go. Idaho. Still? Sorry. Let me share. It looks like you're taking the 5543. Let's see here. Praxis, Idaho required test. This is how you find your test. Just Google your test, your name and special education. Looks like, is that special education? Yep. Let's scroll down. Elementary ed. I don't see any special education. Oh, there it is. There's severe visual impairments. 5355. You're taking the 5355. All right. So you just have to sort of look and check that out. Okay. Blessings to all. And thank you, Leah. I'm in Maryland. Just go to that Praxis site and look it up. It'll tell you there. All right, everybody. So listen, be on the lookout for an email from me. It's going to have the replay link. You watch this again if you want. It's going to have the free study guide again, and it's going to have an offer code. The offer code should have been shared in the chat. I believe it was. Yana probably shared it. Yep, I can see she shared it. But make sure you be on the lookout for that. And then if you want the book, you can grab it. Remember, physical books on Amazon, digital books on our website. And then if you want some SAT prep, go on over there, check that out. I'm on YouTube again with that. I'm going to do the same thing that I do here. I'm going to do live webinars. I'll be on TikTok, all of that. If your student's not ready yet, that's okay. Keep me in mind for when they become a junior. I usually like people to start taking SAT second semester junior year is usually good time, but I think they should start early thinking about it, because the earlier you start, the better it is. But, and I really appreciate you guys. Special ed teachers are amazing. And if you are a general ed teacher getting your special education certification or endorsement, thank you, because everybody needs support. And even some of the stuff you're going to learn, MTSS is great for everybody. Note-taking templates are great for everyone. Individualized instruction is great for everyone. So even your highly proficient kids need differentiation. So this helps everybody. So I really appreciate you guys. I still don't see the offer code. Let me put it in the chat really quick, guys. I don't know if Yana is still in here. Let me just check real quick. Hang on. Let me see which offer code we're using. Give me 1 second. Here it is. Okay. I got it. Oh, I just put it up. She got it. It's right there. Yana has it posted, and so did I. Oops, and I did it wrong. Don't do it. I'm deleting it. I spelt it wrong. Use Yana's here. There it is. I spelled it wrong. You gotta put it right in the checkout. Go all the way to checkout. So you use it all the way at checkout. Okay. In Maryland, the 5355 and the 5205 is required for well, you're in luck, because I have an amazing 5205 teaching reading book and course and all of that. So check out my stuff for that too, Rodney. And thank you for your kind words about the webinar. I appreciate that. Got the timing confused and signed on the end. Looking forward to the email. Yes, Joanne, you'll get it. You'll get the recording. So don't worry. You can watch it on demand. No problem. I always do these at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm in Florida, so I'm on the East Coast. So I do them at 10 a.m. Eastern, which might be a lot earlier wherever you are. So you can always watch the recording. We always have them. Check out my YouTube channel. Subscribe. Find me on TikTok, follow me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, everything. Don't forget the SAT at kmjlearning.com. And we will send you all of the stuff that you need in an email in about 20 minutes.